We have come together to assert our role in the direction of world affairs and to discharge our duty to the great continent. Africa is today at mid-course in transition from the Africa of yesterday to the Africa of tomorrow. That statement was made in 1963 during the first meeting of the Organization of Africa Unity, OAU. We are at a similar inflection point with the COVID moment. Africa can approach the pandemic as an opportunity to achieve robust and sustainable recovery. It can use the moment to recalibrate and harness its external relationships towards unleashing the latent capacity of the continent. Africa is the next big growth market with a population of 1.2 billion people, most of whom are young, increasingly better educated, and quite entrepreneurial. It is also the new frontier for trade and investment, and as those who have invested in Africa know, returns on investment are some of the highest in the world. The Africa-China relationship is a new but consequential relationship. For the past 11 years, China has been Africa's largest trading partner. China is also the single largest player in Africa infrastructure. It finances 1 in 5 infrastructure projects and builds 1 in 3 of them. This has begun to remove one of the most critical constraints to development in the continent, that is infrastructure. How can this supersized partnership be leveraged to unleash Africa's growth potential? We propose that the role of China in Africa's transformation could become even more consequential if China made 4 strategic shifts. 1, a shift in its development strategy. 2, an improvement in the quality of its cooperation. 3, expansion in scope of its development program. And 4, a recalibration of its framework of cooperation. China needs to make strategic shifts in its development strategy in order to align it to the key trends that are driving transformation in Africa. They are its young population, urbanization, industrialization, infrastructure development, and the untapped resource wealth of the continent, as well as the innovative application of digital and mobile technology. We will not discuss infrastructure because China has already done a very good job on that. Let's take the others in turn. Africa is both the youngest and the fastest growing continent. Roughly 60% of the population is under the age of 25. By 2050, 1 in 4 people in the world will live in Africa. How do we unleash the tremendous potential of this demographic? The obvious starting point is to improve the human development and human capabilities population through education, training, skill development, as well as strengthen connections to finance and markets. When you look at the China training program in Africa, which is currently the largest, with over 100,000 people trained every 3 years, it is completely misaligned to the basic human development needs of the continent. We therefore propose that China could usefully align its support for training and skill development in Africa in 3 ways. The first is basically to align it to strengthening human development through education and training along the lines mentioned a minute ago. The second is skill development and training to enable Africans to maintain the huge infrastructure that China has helped to build, bridges, ports, roads, to ensure that they are the engineers and the service people, to ensure that that infrastructure becomes sustainable and productive. And the third one is to share lessons of experience, particularly on poverty alleviation, where China has done a tremendous job. Between 2015 and 2045, the urban population in Africa will grow by an average of 24 million per year. Globally, more than 80% of GDP is generated in towns and cities for the obvious reason of agglomeration, where money, capital, and people are concentrated in small spaces. But for towns and cities in Africa to realize the productive benefits of urbanization, we need to urgently meet the needs of affordable housing, well-connected transport systems, and basic services as well as jobs. China could usefully make a strategic shift to apply the same approach it has applied on infrastructure to meet the housing and basic services needs of our towns and cities. Africa has 60% of the world's underdeveloped arable land and huge untapped mineral resources. But currently, Africa is not providing either the revenues or the jobs that could accrue from its extractive industry. And we therefore propose a strategic shift is required in the way China approaches the extractive industry in Kenya, so that it imports finished products, not just raw materials. And we have seen how Botswana built its wealth around exporting refined diamonds. I would like to propose that this is one of the most important contributions China could make to Africa by getting the natural resources refined in Africa, processed in Africa, and then Africa exporting finished products. China also needs to align its partnership so that it can become an even more powerful force of growth and transformation, and could do this in several ways. The first is basically putting African leaders at the driver's seat and allowing African leaders to define and lead the development program. As far back as inauguration of what is now the African Union, our leaders then said, we have the resources, but we have failed to make full use of our power in the independence to mobilize our resources for the most effective takeoff of social development. And they basically went on to talk about needing to control the means of production and to control their finances. We are at a similar point now. Africa no longer continue being just a recipient of development aid. They need to shape the investments. And as we saw during COVID, African leaders became quite effective at coordinating to shape their destinies. The African Medical Supplies Platform, for example, very quickly organized a platform for supply COVID-related materials. In a similar way, we have seen the engagement of Economic Commission for Africa, how they have engaged the rest of the world on financing for COVID and debt management. At the bilateral level, we have begun to see a few countries have rebalanced the relationship with China, where they insist that if the infrastructure is built, they also need to see training developed, so that in Ethiopia, for example, we need to see more of that, where Africans are driving the program and the nature of the program in a much more equitable manner. Concerns that have been expressed about the trade relationship with Africa, between China and Africa, is that it is deeply asymmetrical. China is seen to benefit more from the relationship than its Africa counterparts. There's a huge deficit amounting to over $20 billion, for example. Africa imports expensive finished goods from China, while exporting cheaper raw materials, and African firms face significant entry barriers to China's value-added product market. This asymmetry is not good for maximization of such a strategic relationship, and what we propose is that there needs to be a major rethink of the quality of Africa-China trade in particular, to make it much more reciprocal and less asymmetrical. China could harness new growth opportunities in Africa over and above the existing program. The most promising one is supporting the acceleration of the digital economy in Africa. The digital economy stimulates business vitality, shapes lifestyles, changes consumption habits, and as we noticed during COVID, it basically helped to maintain systems running in a way that would not have been possible in the past. Chinese companies, in an ironical way, have secured a huge share of the digital market in Africa. For example, Huawei equipment constitutes 70% of the 4G infrastructure in Africa, and it was the first in the continent to offer 5G services. Tech companies such as ZTE, CloudWalk, and so on have secured government contracts to build smart cities, data centers, e-governance platforms, surveillance systems, and so on. Again, Huawei alone is involved in 25 data center and e-governance projects across Africa. There is a contradiction here between the needs of accelerating digital development in Africa and importing wholesale Chinese technology, and the strategic shift we propose is for Chinese enterprises to support digital development in Africa rather than simply transferring their technology wholesale. Investment should focus on supporting the development of a robust technology ecosystem that includes the infrastructure, digital business, digital skills, values, and so on. And it's a huge opportunity for investment. This will spur digital trade that will help transform the transformation of industrial supply and value chains. It will also enable digital acceleration in key sectors such as education and health, retail, and finance. The other new area that we propose that China could expand its programs into is supporting Africa indigenize its manufacturing capacity. During COVID, African manufacturers have demonstrated the capability and innovative capacity to produce essential medical supplies. There is scope now to increase local manufacturing capacity in areas such as pharmaceuticals and agro-processing. This is a tremendous opportunity to unleash growth and development. For every dollar of manufactured product, Africa imports approximately 40 cents in input from outside the continent. If local manufacturing was strengthened, you could unleash billions and billions of dollars to the continent's manufacturing output. So what we are seeking here is for China not just to be a factory for Africa in China, but to help Africa become a manufacturing hub driven by its own felt needs. The third area that we propose where a shift is required is basically pushing China beyond its comfort zone, beyond the scope of its current strategic development agenda for Africa. And we just propose three areas. The first one is debt. And this is topical, it's sensitive, but we cannot hope to unleash growth and development in Africa at this point unless we squarely confront the issue of debt. China is Africa's largest bilateral creditor. It holds at least 21% of total Africa debt, and payments to China account for nearly 30% of the 2021 debt service. That's a huge outlay. And we're proposing, as one civil society organization said, let's throw out the rule book and revisit this issue in a manner that enables Africa to sort of shake off the shackles of debt through debt forgiveness as possible, debt reprofiling, debt restructuring. Also, we are proposing that there is scope to explore alternative cooperation strategies in finance, such as joint ventures, mergers, acquisitions, and PPPs. Essentially, a starting point has to be, how do we reduce the dead weight of debt on Africa growth and recovery. The second one is supporting Africa on peacekeeping efforts. Africa is doing a lot to try and silence the guns with qualified success. We are proposing that China could usefully scale up its support for peacekeeping efforts, including increased UN-assessed contributions to ensure sustainable and predictable financing for AU peace support operations, because you cannot have development without peace. The third area where we are proposing China moves slightly beyond its comfort zone is supporting Africa on climate change. Africa is doing a lot on climate action, but it needs financing. And Chinese investments could help African countries grow green economies to achieve low carbon and climate resilient outcomes, focusing on food security, clean energy, green and resilient cities, environmental stability, and so on and so forth. China could also discuss with Africa countries innovative financing mechanisms that are currently being discussed by various nations, including debt for climate swaps, to provide space for economic recovery and climate adaptation. Finally, we propose that China could usefully adjust its framework of cooperation. At the moment, China has developed a very effective mechanism for engaging the African continent through FOCAC. 46 African countries have already signed to the Belt and Road Initiative. So there is sort of a continental approach from the China side towards Africa development. But we don't have a parallel structure for engaging African countries. At the moment, the engagement is primarily bilateral, even when decisions are made at the FOCAC level. We therefore propose that as a final strategic shift, China could usefully be proactive in supporting the actualization of the Africa Continental Free Trade area, and use that as a regional platform to engage the continent in a more strategic and holistic manner, even as bilateral engagements obviously remain in place. So China could support accelerated integration of Africa, support regional economic integration, facilitate inter-Africa trade and investment, and promote the connectivity of cross-regional infrastructure. These proposals will realize the promise of Africa and help release development potential of the 1.2 billion people who have a combined GDP of more than 3.4 trillion, which then makes it the fifth largest economy in the world. Everybody benefits from making these strategic investments, both our external partners, in this case China, as well as obviously the African continent. Thank you.